How you doing, everybody? Joe McCall, the Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. And we got another great episode for you today. And we're interviewing a great guy that I just met. I like him a lot. I think you will too. His name is Pete Reese, and he's a land investor, very active land investor. Some months, he'll do just maybe only $500,000 a month on a good month, right? But yeah, that's not bad, is it? Flipping vacant land. That's what we're going to be talking about today. It's my favorite subject, flipping vacant land. And I know you're going to get a lot out of it. We are going to be diving deep into the details. So get a pen and paper, like I got mine right here. Get your pen and paper out. We're going to take a lot of massive notes. You know how I do these podcasts. I like to over-deliver on the value. And we've got two things we're going to give to you for free on today's episode. Number one, I'm going to give you my land contract, the contract that I use to flip our vacant land deals. And Pete's also going to give you his. I'm going to give you his link in a minute here. But if you want mine, go to simplelandcontract.com, simplelandcontract.com. It's a real simple page. Put in your email there, and you're going to get the actual one-page contract that my sons and I used to tie up this deal in Suwannee County, Florida. We made a $12,450 profit on this thing. But we actually sold it with owner financing. So we're getting $250 a month. Guys, we bought this thing for $3,800, and we're getting $250 a month for 5 years on that. Where else can you buy something with $3,800 actually out of pocket? We're only out of pocket about $2,500 because we got about a $1,500 down payment, something like that. But where else can you get $250 a month in passive cash flow without tenants and toilets and trash and termites and all the other T's for just a few $1,000 with zero debt? No, you can't. You can't do it anywhere else. So Pete and I are going to be talking about that on this podcast. And if you want my contract for free, again, there's no catch, no tricks. Well, there is a little trick. We want you to register for a webinar, but if you go to simplelandcontract.com, we will opt in there. We'll email you the contract, give you an invitation to watch a class that I did on how you can learn how to do this strategy yourself as well. Cool? Now let's bring Pete on because Pete's got some cool things to share with us as well. He's doing a lot of vacant land deals. Pete, how are you, my man?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show. Excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Appreciate it very much. Let's talk about what you do. Where are you from? And how did we? You sent me an email a few weeks ago. We talked a little bit later on, and I remember I was like, okay, stop talking. I want to save all my questions for our podcast interview because it sounds like you're doing some really cool things. But how did you get into real estate? Let's start with that.
Well, I got into real estate like a lot of other people with the purchase of our first home, myself and my wife. And, that kind of worked out pretty well. We only held it for 2 years, bought it with an FHA loan with a small down payment. So we were able to sell it a couple of years later and to make a $50,000 profit. And that's money in our pocket at the end. And at the time, we were like, this is amazing. Real estate is great. I've always had an interest in real estate, but that was kind of the first actual piece of real estate I bought. It led to basically us getting into home flipping. So we did that for a while. This is before the big market crash of 2007 to 2009. During that time period, I got my broker's license here in California. That's where I live. And that was kind of a pretty good timing because I was able to use that broker license to sell REO or bank-owned properties. So I was an REO listing broker for about 2 years during the worst market crash ever. So it was pretty busy, actually, at a time when a lot of people in real estate were struggling. So that led me to working with a lot of investors. I would find them deals, my listings, and also other properties that I knew on the market that I could get locked up for them. So I knew that side of things, coming from the home flipping side of things, and I knew that I knew what they were looking for and what they needed to make the numbers work. I also like the fact that there's no emotions involved with the real estate investing. It's not about paint colors or feng shui or anything like that. It's simply about, do the numbers work and is it a good business decision?
And you see a lot more of that in California maybe than other parts of the country.
The feng shui.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things out here.
All right. So cool. When did you start getting into, and what part of California do you live in?
I'm in San Diego, Del Mar specifically. So it's a great spot. It's nice weather most of the year. And that's why I'm here. I'm from Pennsylvania originally. That's where I grew up, went to college out there. And then after college, moved out with a friend and just decided that if I don't like it, I can always move home. But it worked out pretty well because I got my family to move out after me, my younger brother, my older brother, and even my parents. So it worked out pretty well.
I've been to Del Mar many, many times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's
a good spot.
Well, I used to live in San Diego for most of my childhood and then left San Diego in 1989. Wow.
Okay.
Way back, a long time ago. But anyway, okay. So what got you interested in land?
Well, I knew I wanted to get into the investing game again myself. And I just was doing a lot of research, trying to figure out what niche I wanted to sort of pursue. Read some stuff about land, people taking a $10,000 property and flipping it for $30,000. I thought, that's pretty good. I'd love to do a bunch of those. And it sounded great, but I really had no idea, if that was reality or just, people talking on the internet. So I decided to, I bought a course on it and I just dove in, learned
what year
everything.
Was this?
This was in 2020. It was actually about 2 years ago right now. It was Thanksgiving time 2 years ago. So just over 2 years ago is when I bought the course on it. And then I just really dove in, learned everything I could about the land side of things. I had quite a bit of experience with real estate, but land is a whole different animal, how to evaluate these properties and how to generate the deals. So I, had a lot to learn, and I figured I'd learn everything I could and then just dove right in.
Cool.
So sent out my first batch of letters probably about 2 years ago, right around this time of the year. And my first batch of mail was a complete dud because I made a number of mistakes on it, but I learned from them. And I did my first deal in November of 2021. So in March of 2021. So a little over a year and a half ago. The first year, 2021, we did 1.2 in revenue and about 50% gross profit margin. And then 2022, I'm going to end up somewhere between 3.5 and 4 million in revenue and right around that same gross profit margin.
Fantastic. Amazing. Right?
Well, thank you.
That's now you've done houses, you've done land. Which do you prefer?
Land, so much easier. It honestly is. There's just less that can go wrong, I guess. I mean, there's always things that can go wrong in any sort of real estate deal, but there's just less variables. You're not dealing with people living at the property generally. And it's easier to get things ready to resell. It's just a lot easier from my perspective, really.
Yeah. And I should mention too, guys, Pete has his own letter and contract. And where did my cursor go? Here it is. And if you want it, you can get it right now at joemccall.com/Pete. joemccall.com/Pete. If you go there, you can get the letter and the contract that Pete sends out. Now he sends it, he does a little different. I want to go into this in a little bit. You send blind offers to sellers mainly, right?
Right.
I prefer to send neutral letters, and I'd like to get your feedback on that a little bit here in a minute, why you like that better. But let's talk about the deals that you did in 21 and 22 for the last 2 years. What kind of deals have they been? Where have you been going? And you don't have to give us a specific county, but like areas,
Yeah, mostly the East Coast. That's kind of where I've been focusing. I've done some stuff in the Pacific Northwest, but most of my stuff has been the East Coast. It seems like it's they're very many of them are active. Many of the states are really active markets for land. There's a lot of deals happening, and I like that. California is a little rough for land investing. I know a lot of people do land investing in California where I live, but it just does. I did one deal in California, but it just doesn't resonate with me as much.
I felt the same way. We did some land in Kern County and Riverside County, maybe.
Yep.
Los Angeles County. They're huge counties, right? And I just felt like all that work for just these little deals, because there's a ton of them that are just, investors are selling them for like $4 or $5 grand.
Yep.
And it's just a lot of work for a little bit of money. Now, usually they're selling them with owner financing, and there is a lot of activity. You can make money, but there are better states. Would you agree with this?
I definitely agree. Yeah. I definitely agree. And that's one of my things. That's a different business model than I do. And I know a lot of land investors make a lot of money, holding the financing like you were talking about at the beginning. and selling them that way. Mine is pretty much focused on buying cash and then reselling cash for a quick sale. My average hold time is 60 days on average between all my properties. So what we do is we buy off market direct from the sellers, and then we sometimes do some simple things to them, like maybe we'll get some clearing done, maybe we'll get a perk test, maybe we'll get a survey, depending on what it needs to enhance the marketability. And then we'll put it on the market right away with a local real estate broker and resell it. So I normally always use a local broker to resell it and list the property for us.
That's interesting. So you're finding more premium deals. So talk about what well, let's rewind even more, because I got a lot of good questions here, and I know a lot of people are wondering. And I like the fact that your average hold time is 60 days. I think it's important for people to realize that. Unlike housing, where there's so many buyers and such a huge demand, when you're flipping a house, you can usually sell it within days, but you still have that 30 days window where you have to close with the title company and all of that. But with land, it just takes a couple months longer, typically on average, right? To sell the land. All right. So can you talk about what your criteria is when you're picking a county? How do you narrow it down from the state to the county level?
Sure. Well, one of the things I look for, just as a broad thing, is I try to be within an hour or two, within a radius of a major metropolitan area that's got something going on for it that I like, really. So that leaves a lot of areas in play, basically. And then I try to look at what's the activity level, and are things selling well, or are they sitting on the market forever? Like one of the basic things I'll do, like if you're trying to just look at an area, say for instance, you take a certain county and it's Smith County, and you have a certain criteria of properties you like. For us right now, we like properties 10 acres or more. I mean, we have done smaller properties, but that's what resonates best with us now. So that's what we're searching for. So I might put in, I'll look on Zillow and say 10 to 100 acres. And I'll say, over the past 12 months, how many properties sold? And then I'll see how many properties are for sale. And if it's even, like if there's 20 properties for sale, 20 that have sold in the last 12 months, then it's a pretty decent market. If there are 10 properties on the market within that range and 20 have sold in the last year, then I know it's an even more active market. So things are selling, and there's 6 months worth of inventory as opposed to a year's worth of inventory. And then if it's on the other side of things, if there's 50 listings and only 20 sales in the past year, then I'll generally stay away from those counties unless I get I've had some sort of experience where I know that if I can price something super aggressively, that it will sell, or if I know that it's easier to pick up properties in that particular county. So,
why are you staying above 10 acres? Talk a little bit about that.
I've just kind of decided to keep that as my criteria for now, because I like to have more than one exit plan. And I feel like if you're at the 10 acre mark, then your exit plan, you could sell to someone that's going to build on the property. But if that doesn't work out, you can always sell to someone as a recreational side of things. When you get into the smaller lots, I just worry, and I've come into a couple situations where, we thought we did all our due diligence, we thought it was buildable, and, we've come to find out that it's, there's some sort of barrier that would make it more difficult to build or not buildable in some way. So those properties, like say a 5 acre property, you're not going to have many people that are interested for recreation. It's just kind of too small. A lot of people are looking for something 10 acre plus. So that's kind of why I'm going there. And plus, you're getting some bigger dollar amounts when you go into the larger acreage ranges. Now, I know some of the stuff that's pretty close to the major metropolitan areas that are in that 2 to 5 acre range, they can still be really pretty pricey. But those are generally only, buildable type properties. And if there's an issue with it, then you're kind of stuck, I guess.
Okay. So can you walk through an example deal? Typical example deal. 10 acres. It's an hour outside of a major city. You see a lot of activity. By the way, I wanted to ask, do you use Priced yourself?
I have. I tried it. Yeah. Have
you ever look at the research tool in Priced? where you can look at days on market. You can look at sold to for sale ratios.
No, I haven't used that. I just use it simply for the pricing.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating because there's a research thing where you can say, by the way, shameless plug, if you're interested in priced, everybody, joemccall.com/priced, PRYCD. It's an amazing tool. I would still recommend it, even if I didn't get a little commission on it. And it's not much. I get a little. But there's a thing called, it's a research, I think is what it is. You type in the state, and then there's about 8 or 9, 10 criteria. And you can search for, one of them is days on market, the average days on market. You can do a sold to for sale ratio. So the higher the number, the better, normally, right? You can do I filter it down even more to number of sold comps. So I want to make sure there's good activity in the sold area. And then I don't want too big of a county that's like in the major cities. So you can do a population per square mile, maybe under an average of 1,000 or something like that. Days on market, number of solds, sold to for sale ratio, something else. But then you see kind of the you can narrow down a state with 100 counties down to 10 or 20, which is very interesting, right? So you're looking. So give us an example deal then of 10 acres. It's worth. What are you trying to sell that 10-acre property for?
Yeah, pretty much we try to double our investment on anything we do. So say, for instance, it's in an area where retail may be, 7,000 an acre, something like that. I'll try to pick it up typically for maybe 3,000 an acre. So then I can price it maybe slightly below the retail price. And then, that's what helps me generate my quick sales generally. And the other thing is I'm only trying to buy what I consider to be quality properties at this point. Like I rarely, well, first of all, I've only bought one landlocked property and it was just, I didn't lose money on it, but it was just such a hassle. I've kind of sworn off any landlocked properties or things that have issues. Like if there's too much of a slope, if it's, a lot of wetlands, if it's, the access is weird, something like that. I just pass on those properties now. I used to try and make something out of every, potential deal. Like for the right price, I figured, well, for the right price, this, I can make this work. But those properties have all been problems for me. Not problems. I haven't lost money on any deals, but they've been more effort than I want to spend on each property. And those are the longer holds and the ones that I make the least amount on. So I've been focused on just trying to buy what I consider to be quality properties. A property where if I walked onto the property or anyone walked onto the property, they'd say, hey, this is a nice property. I'd love to buy this property. So, no matter what kind of market environment, if it's a property that's a nice property, I mean, it will sell. It'll sell if you price it, slightly below market, and it'll sell quickly.
So you're using a realtor to sell these properties, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So
yes.
are you figuring in when you double your money back, if you buy a property for 30 grand, are you hoping to net 30 after realtor expenses?
Exactly. Yeah. So we try to, double our investment after all closing costs and commissions and everything like that.
All right. So let's say it's worth about $7 grand an acre. So you're going to try to sell it. If it's a 10-acre lot, you're trying to sell it for 70?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So,
right, so what's your maximum offer then?
It would probably be on something like that. It would probably be 30, I would say. And sometimes 40%. We can get a little bit better, if it's quality property. Sometimes we can get a little bit better than double. Sometimes it's a little bit less. But I just kind of try to ballpark it and say, realistically, what could we list this for where it's going to be slightly below market and then net, and then hopefully double our investment. And sometimes I have to push it a little further. If I know it's a quality property, I'm willing to push it a little further, even if it's not quite a double. But, so we try to do on average.
Yeah. So you're buying the property around 40%?
Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you were going after cheaper property, maybe 1 to 10 acres, were you down at the 25, 35% level? Did you ever look at it that way?
I think that's always kind of been in my head, like trying to double. But I know we've done on some of those cheaper properties, we've done triple, quadruples. We've had some really, really good ones like that. But I don't know. I think that's always kind of been my standard, to try to double things.
Okay. All right. So you pick a county that's got a lot of activity, an hour, 2 hours outside of the city. You're looking for 10 plus acres, maybe 10 to 100. Is that the list that you pull?
Yeah, I actually do 10 to max. I'll even send like offers on huge properties, 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres. Biggest one we've done is 650 acres.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good one. It was one, I've only done 2 partner deals, where I bought in a partner to actually fund the deal. And that was one of them. We bought that property for $315,000 and ended up selling it for $595,000.
Did you use a funding company, a land funding company for that?
Yeah, I used a partner that, he just was looking to kind of partner on some land deals, and he brought on the money, and I did the marketing side of things, and we split the profits. So it was a good deal for both sides.
I just interviewed Travis King from Freedom Land Capital. Is that what it is? This company. And I had a student that used him and just made his net from the deal was $13,000. That's how much he made on the deal.
Yeah.
Super happy about it, But the funding company pretty much helped with everything, and they require you to list with an agent.
Right.
So the interesting thing about those deals, especially I tell people if you're just getting started, use a funding company that's already doing land, because they can kind of walk you through the process. If it's a good enough deal, you can see how it all works. And that's one of the advantages to being in the higher price properties. Would you agree? Because you use realtors and you have the room to pay a realtor. And that also takes a lot of the work off of your plate, right?
Oh, yeah. I use realtors, local land brokers on every single one of our deals, unless I don't have someone in that particular area. And what we try to do is kind of establish relationships. We really leverage them on the purchase side of things. Like we have them look at our due diligence, give us their opinion of value. And, if it makes sense for them to actually go out to the property as well, we leverage them in that part. But on the other side of things, then we give them the listing after we purchase it. Yeah. So it really takes off. A lot of land investors put a lot of effort into the marketing side of things, their marketing website and listing on all these sites and everything like that. And we don't have that side of things to bog us down. And we just list with the broker who has their own process and their own marketing, their own buyer list and everything like that. So I think there's advantages to each, but
have you ever tried selling any of those properties on owner financing terms?
I haven't to date, but I actually recently came in contact with someone that will actually buy the notes from me at closing. So I get cashed out, he holds the financing. But it's not really part of my business model to hold the financing. Maybe sometime in the future, maybe if I started a fund or something like that, I could see that working. But I think just when I kind of evaluate the funds that we have and the return on investment and everything like that, I think I can multiply it a lot faster just by doing these type of deals that I'm currently doing rather than holding the financing.
All right. So let's talk about the mail that you're sending. You're sending letters. And again, guys, you can go to joemccall.com/Pete to get the letter and the blind offer contract that Pete is sending out. Why do you send blind offers?
Right. I think it projects a level of seriousness. Like, I'm ready to go. Here's what I want to offer. And it gets people responding. Sometimes the responses are not positive, where people upset that we offered too low on their property. And we get a lot of those. We use a call answering service to filter most of those out. But it's a starting point. Sometimes we're on, sometimes the prices are on, sometimes it's too low, sometimes it's too high. But at least it's a discussion starter in a lot of cases. And then they know we're serious about buying the property. At least that's the perception that we try to give. And we will buy a property if it's a good property, and we can work out the price. So I don't know. I've always done that. But
have you ever tested sending a neutral letter?
No, never have. Never have. Probably should.
I would suggest it, and I would give you my reasoning why I like to do it. Because it takes so much time in the front end to price properties if you're sending blind offers, right? You can't just use you can't just use one price for the entire county. Depends on where it is. And I know guys that are spending tons of time trying to figure it out, break it down to the subdivision level, breaking it down in a map and saying, all right, all the properties here will get this price, all the properties here will get this price, doing that kind of a thing. Wouldn't it just, my argument is, and I've tried both, and I like the neutral letter better because I send everybody to a 24-hour, I call it, please text or call our 24-hour recorded voicemail. I want them to call. And they know nobody's going to answer. So I don't have a live answering service. When I tested this before, it seems like I get more calls because it's going to a 24-hour recorded voicemail. And I don't want them going to a website. I want them to call that number. Now I have more leads. I have more calls. And it's not a ton. I mean, I get maybe 2% to 3%, depending on the county. Sometimes 1%. I get an average of 2% that will call me on a letter. When I send blind offers, my response are more down in the 0.5% to 1%. So I get about double the phone calls, right? So if I'm sending out 1,000 letters, I'll get 20 calls. And I have a reference ID on the letter. And so the voicemail says, thanks for calling. What's the letter reference ID? And we also text them. And then we also ask them for their email address so we can email them the offer. Now I have 3 ways to follow up with them: text, email, and in the physical mail. But then we can look at the property and determine what we should offer then at that point. So we can see, all right, well, it's next to a lake, or it's in this HOA where there's tons of properties for sale. So we're going to exclude, our offer is going to be really low. Or we can see it's a landlocked property and say we're not interested. Or make an offer for $500, maybe $1,000. We've done that before, super low. And so I would argue that you get more deals accepted because your offers are better to begin with. And you get more calls, and now you have more people to follow up with. So then we follow up with everybody that calls us every 30 days. And we don't talk to them until after they get our offer still. So there's not a lot of being on the phone. So we only talk to them after they get the offer. So I'd be curious to know how that would work, that kind of a strategy on a 10 acres or more. I'm normally targeting 1 to 10 acres is where I'm targeting, right? Maybe it's different on the higher price properties. Maybe those bigger properties are easier to price on your blind offers. So what do you think about that, what I just said? Do you agree or disagree? I mean, I also want to ask you then, how do you price your properties when you're sending your blind offers?
Sure. I like it. I like the concept. Honestly, it's something I should probably test because, I just look at the price, kind of our average cost per deal that we buy. And it's probably going to end up this year probably at about $3,200 in mail costs for every deal that I buy. So it'd be interesting to see how that would change, with the neutral letter thing. I think it could. I think it should be something that I definitely test out, and maybe it could be a situation where I send my list, a neutral letter and then a blind offer, and then or put it into a rotation because I mail these same people multiple times. So yeah. I'm mailing them over and over again, really. So it could be an interesting thing to throw in the rotation too. And, some people might respond to one, as over the other, quite a bit better. And ultimately it's about, getting a conversation and seeing if there's a deal that could be put together. So getting them to respond is the important thing. So
how do you price your offers then? When you're looking at, you get a county and you get, how many names on average in a county are you getting? 500 to 1,000?
Yeah, it depends on the county. It might be, a couple thousand, 1,000 to maybe 3,000 is pretty much the average in all of these counties, it seems like. And, you were talking about those guys that spend all the time and kind of checking out every single zip code and area of the county. I'm not one of them. I pretty much, it's more of a shotgun approach. Really, I just do averages for the whole county, and then I price it accordingly. And I know I'm not as accurate as some of these people are, and that's just the way it is. But yeah,
because that's the frustrating thing with it.
Yeah, but when I look at overall, I'm pretty happy with the return on investment, my mail return on investment. If I can spend $3,000 or $3,200 per deal on mail and my average profit per deal is $22,000, which is what it's been averaging, it's definitely a great return on investment, 6 times, 7 times return on investment, something like that.
Well, that's phenomenal. That's still really good. We're spending about $1,500 on direct mail per deal.
Yeah, that's a lot better. That means I would do twice the amount of deals if I did that.
maybe. I'm just throwing it out there. Think about it. So you're not spending a ton of time at the front.
No.
Pricing your offers.
No, right.
Which isn't as important when you're doing 10 plus acres,
Yeah. I think it's easier. I definitely think it's easier doing the larger parcels when it comes to that. And obviously, different areas have different pricing. There's nuances to every single neighborhood, really. But I just try not to get too hung up about it. I'm more concerned about consistently sending out specific quantity of mail each month. Like I try to send. How much
are you sending out? How much mail are you
50,000 letters a month now.
50,000 letters a month.
Yeah. Every 2 weeks, awesome. I send out 25,000. Yeah.
That's
I like to go big.
Test your neutral letters with a smaller number there, right? Because that might overwhelm. Because, that is going to be more work. If you're sending a neutral letter, you're going to get more leads and you're going to be, you're going to have to price each and every one of those as they come in.
Right.
Now, what I do is I just look, Priced will tell me what to offer, and Priced, if you do they have this thing called a comp report, and it'll give you the county pricing, the city pricing, and the geolocation pricing, which are all different. And I just pick the lowest of the three is what I do and send that out. But then I always verify it when I go to Zillow and I just look at what do I think I can sell this for, and I know what my minimum profit is. So I'll come up with a number real quick, just looking at what I think I can sell it for and what price is saying. And then I got these two numbers. I just go with the lower one. It's typically how I like to do it and how I teach. So that's something you could have a VA do for you.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Do you have virtual assistants helping you with all of this, or do you do it?
Yeah, I've got a pretty big team built out now. I've got a lead and due diligence manager, and basically they input everything into the CRM when we get a response. So we get a call into our call center, or we get a email or a piece of mail back, something like that. They input everything into our CRM, and then also kind of do some basic due diligence, like pull up a map link and put it in our CRM so we can just click on it and don't have to create that map, and some things like that. Look at the wetlands and FEMA floods and just some of the basic stuff. And then I've got an acquisition manager, and her job is to actually call and communicate with all the sellers directly. I don't really do any of that myself at this point. I've also got another person that's a property analyst, and their job is to evaluate all these properties, look at them deeply, determine where we need to be price-wise, and if it's a property we actually want to move forward and buy. And then they also review all the due diligence after that's all collected as well. I've got another team member that does list prep and just some other miscellaneous tasks within our business. And I've got a transaction manager that handles all the buy-side transactions and all the resale transactions as well, just all the paperwork stuff.
So that's 5 people on your team?
Yeah. And then I've got an executive assistant as well.
And a personal assistant?
Yeah, an executive assistant that kind of helps me manage a team and really takes projects and kind of moves them forward. So
nice. Good. So 6 people on your team. Are they US based or Filipinos?
I've got a couple of people that are in the Philippines. And then I've got one in Canada, that my acquisition manager is from Canada. And then I've got my property analyst here in the US, and my transaction manager is here in the US, and my executive assistant is US based as well.
I know a lot of people listening to this are going to be intimidated. Like, oh my gosh, this guy's sending 50,000 letters a month. He's got 5 full-time employees. That's crazy. It takes you time to build there. You didn't start there right away.
No. I started with my assistant from the Philippines. He came with me from another business that I have. And I just kind of trained him as I learned everything within the business. And I kind of gave him tasks that I wanted to get off of my plate. And gradually he just picked up a bunch of stuff, just kind of grew it at all like one piece at a time. Then I brought on the acquisition manager, and then I brought on a transaction manager, and then also the property analyst, and then as the executive assistant. So I've just kind of built them one piece at a time, and just kind of trying to get rid of all the stuff that I do on a daily basis. And now I'm just pretty much evaluating deals. I'm trying to do big picture stuff. So
yeah. So when you say you're net about 50%,
mm-hmm.
you don't have to get into the granular detail. Does that include all your overhead and staff? No,
that's like just the property stuff. Like, say I bought, $1.7 million properties, and then we sold it for $3 million after commissions and closing costs and everything. That's just like the gross profit. Then I've got all the staff expenses and other, business expenses that get deducted from that, unfortunately.
And direct mail costs.
Yeah, and direct mail costs is your big one. So
yeah, you're spending probably 35 grand a month on direct mail.
It's about 25 grand.
Okay.
So yeah, about 50 cents a letter, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's talk about some tools and software that you use, right? Mm-hmm. Who do you use for your live answering service?
I use Pat Live.
Okay, cool. And you like them?
Yeah. I mean, we've had some things here and there, but it's generally just a matter of getting on the same page with some scripts. And they're like any other business, really. I mean, they have some reps that are really good and some reps that are maybe newer and learning on the job. So you have those types of things here and there. But
okay, CRM. What do you use for that?
Yeah, we've got our own proprietary CRM. It's built on the High Level platform. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah, so it's built on that, but we've done a whole customization, and it's not just a CRM really. It's a whole business process system for us. So we use it to manage all aspects of like all the different team members and all the processes, like the transaction manager processes on the buy side and the resale side, like our due diligence processes that all gets managed within there. And then obviously the acquisition side of things when we're dealing with the sellers and the leads that come in. And there's a lot of automations built within there, like automatic texting and emails and all kinds of stuff.
Well, this is something really interesting. I use FreedomSoft. I love it. It doesn't do everything I want it to do, but it does 95% of what I want it to do. But I've looked at Go High Level or High Level, whatever it's called, right? Mm-hmm. Did you look to see if anybody else had done something before that you just kind of copied, or did you just start from complete scratch and build it on your own?
I started from scratch. I used it in another business that we own, so I was pretty familiar with it. And I saw that some people were using it for real estate investing, but it was all a little different than what I do. So I kind of had to build it out step by step. And it's grown over time. Like I've, added things and customized it. And now it's to the point where it does a really good job kind of managing our whole business, really.
One of the drawbacks, I'm getting a little geeky here in the technical.
That's all right.
Because I've looked at that, and then I've done something similar with another software, and it just grew into this huge little monster of all of these. I was relying on all these different third-party apps, right. Zapier, at the time, GlobyFlow, and then like if I wanted to do phone, text, I had to sign up with another service that tied into Podio is what it was. Mm. And then I had, if I wanted to do direct mail, I was tying something else in, and I had this long chain of all these third-party things that were coming in. And I realized that my chain is only strong as its weakest link. So if Zapier broke or if something broke with here, I wouldn't even know about it maybe for a couple of weeks. So have you found that same thing with High Level? If you have to have all these other third-party integration things in it, does it still work?
Well, that's one of the benefits of High Level. It is kind of maybe as you're building it out is really maybe not the most user-friendly. Once you get it set up, it works beautifully. But getting it set up and customized is maybe a little bit difficult. But they've got, that's one of the beauties of that platform is they've got so many different things that are like integrated within the platform that, you don't have to use outside apps in a lot of cases, So there are some still outside things that we use with Zapier, and you still have to sign up for Twilio and Mailgun if you're going to, send emails and send text messages through there. But once you get those things kind of locked in, they have like a direct connection with High Level. Then it's kind of smooth sailing, really.
So let's talk about creating a contract, for example. If I wanted to create a contract in High Level, where I have my input fields and I just want to create a contract with all the merge fields in it, how would you do that with High Level?
Yeah, that's one of the things I haven't set up, but I would like to. Basically, you would use DocuSign or PandaDoc or one of those, and then you use Zapier to you fill out the form, and then it does it behind the scenes, and then sends it out through there.
Okay,
but
so close.
It can be done. It's just I haven't. It's one of those things on the list, I guess.
Well, I was also looking at it from a perspective for something I could build and then sell.
Yeah.
When I sell it, I have to make sure they get Twilio set up. I have to make sure they get Zapier set up, and then the mail gun. Is that what you called it?
Mail gun. Yeah.
Mail gun, and then you've got to get DocuSign for the electronic signatures, and there's probably PandaDocs or something else that creates the document, and then.
So anyway, like you'd have to do a whole onboarding thing.
Yeah.
Set up all that stuff.
Kind of has all of that built in, and already it's built in around the phone. So it's like any lead that comes in, the whole conversation with that seller happens in the lead inside of FreedomSoft. So you can see the inbound and outbound texts and the phone calls. Yeah,
and that's what High Level. That's what is there. Like you can in the CRM, you can listen to the recorded phone calls with all the leads, even if Pat Live, they answer. It brings it into the record. You can see any of the texts that send out. Like everything's all in that conversation view. So you've got it all there, which is nice. But
good. All right, let me. I got some more questions here, real quick. Finding the money. You get a deal. They say, "Yeah, let's sell it." When you got started, how did you get? Did you have the money yourself? Did you borrow private money? What'd you do?
I had some money saved up from other businesses and things that used to get started. One of the big things that I had to deal with in getting this started is proving to my wife that this would all work. I knew it would. I was very confident that it would. But so at one point, we had, I don't know, maybe purchased like 4 or 5 properties. I hadn't sold anything yet. So, and then we had the first one sold and the next one started to sell. And then she could see how it was all kind of working the way it should. But that's a little bit of a tense time, when you put out all that money in mail, or you put out all that money in deals that you're confident will be are good deals, but you don't have that proof to yourself, until you actually do it, I guess. So I was lucky, and then I just kind of gradually ramped it up. I mean, I've got to the point now where I've actually parlayed it into like my portfolio value. It's just kind of looking at that like portfolio value of properties that I actually own that are either under contract to be resold right now, or just properties that are being marketed right now is like 2.7. And those are all free and clear. So I was able to take a small amount and kind of just like snowball it.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, thank you.
So you're using your own money now to buy these things.
Yeah. Except for I did like 2 partner deals.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody getting started, what would you recommend to them? And they don't have that kind of money saved up. What do you recommend?
Definitely do the partner deal thing. I mean, I think it's a win-win really, because like you were saying, like the partners, the right money partners, they can help you out to kind of evaluate these deals. And, they're not going to put their money into something where it's not a deal. So you get to learn, from their experience, like what is a deal and what isn't a deal. And if you're having a problem with the funder, like if funders don't want to fund your deal, it's because it's not a deal. Or it's maybe too risky. Like it's potentially a deal, but it's kind of a risky one.
Or there's not enough meat on the bone.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Bad deals. If you've done any bad deals you lost money on?
I haven't lost money on any deals so far, thankfully. I've had a couple deals where I made like $100 or $500 to just get out of them and to move on from them. Yeah. But haven't lost money, thankfully.
When you got a good deal, do you buy it right away, or do you give because I give myself 3 months to close on our land deals, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you close as soon as you can? Because if you know it's a good deal, just go for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of our thing is that we try to get things like we put on a letter that we try to get it closed within 30 days. I'd close much quicker, if I'm confident in the deal and we've got our due diligence done. We try to get our due diligence done within a week or two, depending on the photographer, how quickly they can get out there really. But generally what we're waiting for is the title companies. And sometimes some of the title companies just take forever to get the title search done and get all that stuff lined up. So we buy everything through a title company, attorney, escrow company, just because I want to make sure that that's good. And then when we go to resell it, we're not going to have any issues on that side of things.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Let's talk final question here. Competition. A lot of people are starting to get worried about, I've heard people complain about competition since I got started in 2009, full time in the business, right? It's always, people can get worried about that. But what is your perspective now? You've been in the market a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Are you worried about competition? Are you seeing more people going after the same deals you're going after?
I hear all the time, people get letters from different, land investors, but honestly, competition doesn't bother me at all. And that's the reason I'm talking to you. It really doesn't. I think it's kind of a situation where there's just so much land in this country and just so much opportunity that to have that perspective, like there's like some sort of scarcity, a scarcity mindset, I guess you could say. I just don't have that. Like, I just think that there's enough to go around. There's plenty of deals to be made, and you're going to get deals if you send out letters or you do if you do your outreach, and you'll make money. The return on investment's there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't concern me at all. I think competition will probably fluctuate over time, but overall, it's still a really solid strategy.
With the market slowing down in housing, are you seeing the market slowing down with land?
Most of the areas that we're in are still really pretty stable, but I try to keep a really close eye on it because I don't want to get stuck. And I think that it really helps that our average hold time is 60 days. So we can adapt pretty quickly. And if we sense that things are really starting to go downhill in a certain area, then we'll just adjust our buy prices, lower. And
that's like you're buying so low, you've got a lot more room for error.
That's right. And the interesting thing is a lot of people worry about the upcoming recession in real estate if that plays out like a lot of people are saying. But as long as you can buy for the right price and sell for the right price, you're going to be fine. When I was doing the REO broker stuff, when I was listing properties for the banks in the worst real estate crash ever, I would have 30 offers on a property because it was priced at a price that was, that it was very attractive to investors, and they knew they could make money on it. So there was still like activity happening. There was still stuff. It was just that the prices reset. And, I'd have 30 voicemails on my phone as well that like every day to call people back. It was just such an unbelievable amount of activity because they were able to price it right. So. Yeah,
I love it too. And when you could even do owner financing to get more interest in a property, more buyers that would buy it, right?
Yeah.
Pete, this has been so good, man. I really appreciate you sharing your stuff. Again, guys, if you want to get Pete's letter and contract that he sends out, go to joemccall.com/Pete and we'll send it to you for free there. Pete, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. If you want to get a hold of me, and please reach out, you can find me at turningprofit.com. And on there, I do a monthly income report, which tracks how we're doing in our business, the revenue, the gross profit, all the deals that we did one by one. I break them down, kind of explain how it went, show you the numbers on those deals, just so you can see what's possible. Because when I started, like I said, there was things I was reading on the internet, anecdotes of people buying a property for $10,000 and selling it for $30,000. And, I just had that to go by, and there was nothing really more tangible than that. So I'm trying to put it out there, the information out there, so people can see it and see what's possible, see what I'm doing. What I'm doing is not the only way to do things by any means, but it's just what I know works for me and might work for you too. So.
Turningprofit.com, right?
That's it. Yep. Turningprofit.com.
All right. Pete, thank you so much. Appreciate you, man.
Well, thank you, Joe. Really, really great to be here.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. See you later.